Here.
Joliet?
Here.
Jackson is absent with notice. Lubes?
Here.
Kokendorfer? Nelson?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Next up, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, we'll move to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes of our committee on October 11th, 2022. If there aren't any corrections or changes, we have a motion. Motion by Commissioner Loop, support by Commissioner Joliet. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Next up, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Again, if there aren't any corrections or changes, do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Loops, support by Commissioner Joliet. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. Next up, we'll move on to our first public comment of this morning. As a reminder, this is for items that are related to the agenda. So at this time, I'd like to open up public comment, and if there's anyone from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee, please make your way to the head of the table. Seeing that there is no one from the public, I will now close public comment. Next up, item number 7 is communications. We have 4 communication items. Communication A, Rose Township Resolution opposing proposed Oakland County Public Transit millage. Item B, Charter Township of Commerce Resolution opposing proposed Oakland County Public Transit millage. Item C, Village of Wolverine Lake Resolution opposing proposed Oakland County Public Transit millage. And item D, Charter of Township of Milford Resolution opposing the proposed Oakland County Public Transit millage. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Loops, support by Commissioner Joliet. Commissioners, is there any questions, comments? Commissioner Gergensen.
I'm just curious, is it the same resolution from all of them, or are they different?
I think they're individual.
4 different ones? Thank you.
Any further question on any of the communication items? Alrighty, seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Joliet?
Oh, wait. Sorry.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Next up, we'll move on down to item number 8, our consent agenda. There are 3 items. Item A, resolution declaring November 8th, 2022 as National Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Day in Oakland County. Item B, resolution recognizing November 12th through the 20th as National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week in Oakland County. And item C, resolution declaring November 17th, 2022 as World Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Day in Oakland County. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Lubes, support by Commissioner Joliet. Commissioners, any questions, comments in regards to any of these consent agenda items? Seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Next up, we'll move on down to our regular agenda. First up, we've got our legislative update by Mr. Jim Ryan. So Jim, feel free to join us at the head of the table. Good morning.
Morning, Madam Chair, members. Nice to see you again. I'll start out with, I think it was your request on an update of 2 bills, one in the Senate, one in the House. The Senate Bill 1136, introduced by Senator Moss, is a double blueback because it was the identical bill was introduced in the House by Representative Bohutsky. It's called the Energy Pricing Protection Act. The bill would prohibit excessive pricing during a period of market disruption. The bills were introduced back in June and were assigned to the Energy and Tech Committee and have not moved. They're both sponsored by the minority party and the two committees are headed up by Republicans, so they're not likely to move these bills. Especially in light of the fact when I get to the part about the remaining session schedule, you'll see there's not a heck of a lot of time. It's kind of comical to what's gonna happen after the election. But, you know, tomorrow, I mean, next year's another year, so the opportunity, I'm relatively sure that Senator Moss will reintroduce it next year, and things could be much different in the Senate next year. So, that's one. Any questions related to that?
You got some
appreciate that.
insider information? Things are gonna be different in the Senate next year? Just kidding.
Can I mean, I'm happy to answer that if I can, if it's appropriate, but I don't know if this is the proper setting. So we'll talk later.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that update.
That's not it. I'm not done.
Oh, okay, this is even better.
I am on those bills, sorry. There's, as I was gonna say, with respect to the session schedule, we're not gonna go back into session until 2 days after the Tuesday election. And all they do that day is leadership elections for speaker, minority leader, majority leader, that stuff. So it's just, everybody returns, all the new people are there for the first time, they have to vote on the new speaker and the new majority leader. And it's unclear as to which party is gonna be in control of the Senate, I think, at this point. But other than that, they are scheduled, and this is where it gets kind of unusual. And, you know, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never seen it like this. But the Senate released their calendar stating that they're gonna come out for November 29th to December 1st, just the Senate, okay? So a week later, December 6th through the 8th, the House is gonna come to town alone, which is, again, weird. And then on December 13th, they both have posted for the House and the Senate on the 13th, one day. So, and then the House comes out and says, maybe it will be likely that we'll come in the 14th and 15th of December. Now, the Senate's not. They have 2 members that are gonna be out of pocket, so we're not gonna come back in that week. So what that means is that, we don't really know what that means, but the one dominant thing that they wanna do, and this is the governor and the Senate Approach Chair, not so much the Speaker of the House, is pass a supplemental. There are a lot of funds, $5 billion worth of federal funds still sitting on the table in Lansing. And there was talk that if control shifted or whatever, that there wouldn't even be a lame duck because they'll want to wait till January and the new people get to spend the money. But in talking with the governor's staff, they feel very strongly that there are some items in the supplemental that are time sensitive, and that waiting to, you know, the regular budget process in February and March and stuff is way too long. One example would be judicial placements of children. That's a serious problem in the state because the courts don't have any place to place kids. And we're talking about kids in bad situations, like a young girl who was assaulted by her father. Well, you can't send her home. So in some counties, these people, these young kids are sleeping in the courthouse for 20, 30 days in sleeping bags.
Oh, my God.
And it's not an issue of not enough beds available, it's an issue about staffing. They can't pay enough to the employees to staff the number of kids that are being assigned. And if you wait till, I mean, this is a problem that's going on for a couple months, where and it's county to county. So maybe not as difficult for this county because you're so large, but there's 83 counties that aren't as prosperous as Oakland that are struggling with this, so.
Commissioner?
Would this be an opportunity for Oakland County to contract with other counties for Mandy's space? Because we have.
If you have space
Mandy's
available,
space
heck yeah,
there.
yeah.
Space, you know? I believe so.
I'm not sure. I know that you can do that with prisoners, but I don't know if you could do that with kids. I just don't know the answer to that, but I can find out and get back to you. So there's issues like that there's a lot of high desire to get that kind of thing done. Another one that I wanted to point up is the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. As you know, the state now collects taxes and then redistributes them to the 83 counties. And counties have been not keeping up with the cost of living. So here's another large pot of money there that there's some agreement on the part of, probably leading the charge is Senator Stamas, the Probst chair, who would like to make a one-time huge contribution to the trust fund so that, we have the money now. Why not start this trust fund so we don't have to go through the same political conversation every year in the budget process, that it's just long-term funding. So that's something where we obviously support that, and we're joining all the other counties in support of that, and that's something that would be great if we can accomplish on these very few dates that we have left. And as I said, the supplemental is the major portion of the conversation. There are some policy bills that are still floating around. There's not enough time to do many, but if there are some significant ones that need to be addressed, there will be a few committees meeting to move some policy legislation that the governor would agree to sign. But for the most part, 90% of their effort is going to be trying to get out of town with a supplemental passed. Okay, I'm done now. Unless you have questions.
We greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Commissioner Joliet?
I was at a Waterford Township Board meeting recently, and there was a resolution, and I didn't write the bill number down, opposing a bill that was introduced about PEG fees.
What fees?
PEG fees, local government, that,
Related to the cable?
yes, that they're trying, this bill is to take away local control and for like the Netflixes and all these streaming services, so they
Yeah.
don't have to pay the PEG fees to the local, right now that Comcast, AT&T does, which would eliminate local access TV.
How
There'd
do
be
you
no
spell PEG?
PEG.
Oh, PEG.
I'm sure it stands for
It's
something. Public
something.
education in government channels. I think that's what it
Okay.
stands for.
Yeah, I can look up that bill.
Okay.
It's interesting, because as the same thing with Amazon, they didn't have to pay local fees, which they now do.
Right, and this is what Netflix and all the other ones, because the government channels have already been cut in half because of everybody pulling the plug from the cable, so then now these streaming services are trying to buy
Gotcha.
them also.
I'll get back to you on that.
Interesting.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioners, any other questions? All right, seeing none. Well, Mr. Ryan, we greatly appreciate your update, so thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
It's
Thank
always a
you.
pleasure seeing you as well.
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Take care.
Alrighty, next up on our regular agenda, we are on to item B, which is Human Resources Collective Bargaining Agreement Fiscal Years 2022, 23, 24 supplemental with the UAW workers, Local 889, representing the Circuit Court, Jury Office, Supervisory, and Non-Supervisory employees. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Loops, support by Commissioner Gershenson. Good morning, April.
Good morning, how is everybody today?
Good. Doing great.
So again, you guys are getting used to my speech. As you know, we have a master agreement with UAW that was implemented in 2019. And as other divisions or units or departments want to join the union, they have what's called a supplemental. So we have a few supplementals for you on the agenda today. The first one is Circuit Court. This is for the supervisory and non-supervisory units of the jury office. And again, there really is not too much in addition to what they have in their what's called master agreement. Just aligning other things that were a normal course of business for them. So they have, again, like making sure that if they do 410s, that they get the vacation time in a 410 space, as well as other, like their bulletin board, the holiday pay, all of those things that they were already in play in the merit rules, if you will, are just integrated into here.
Commissioners, Any questions, comments? Commissioner Loops?
There, so the agenda item is representing circuit court, jury office, supervisory and non-supervisory employees, and in the body of it mentions sheriff's office supervisory employees of work projects supervisor.
Which one is this one? The first one. Sorry.
Are you speaking on the resolution, Commissioner?
In the item summary sheet, yes,
Summary?
I just,
Let's see.
Sorry, I don't.
it's just this line, where I'm going, I have a question about the
Oh.
sheriff's office.
Commissioner, from what I'm being told, that's under the policy analysis and the miscellaneous resolutions that I believe that you're referencing is the history
Yeah, of the supplements.
leading into today's business. So
Okay.
as April said, it's the history of the supplementals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I still have a question about the sheriff's.
Yeah, I think that, I can get back to you on that one. That one has already been approved, so I'll have to, we can talk about that question if you want. I don't have it here.
Okay. So it's a generic
Oh, sure,
question
yeah.
regarding unions. So
Oh, sure.
a contract is approved, and then an employee suggests additional monetary compensation for people who work during the COVID. Is that something you would handle or the union would handle?
The union.
Okay, so we would continue to direct the employee back to the union?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Commissioners,
Thank
any,
you.
Commissioner Joliet?
The increase of the 500 to the 1,500, and I noticed it's on the next item also. How does this compare to the other bargaining units?
It depended on the bargaining unit. Many implemented this, some chose not to and had a higher wage increase. So it was individual units or divisions decided if that was what was best for them.
Okay.
So the majority of folks have that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions on this item? Seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Next up, we'll move on to item number C, which is collective bargaining agreement fiscal years 22, 23, and 24, supplemental with the UAW Local 889, representing county clerk, register of deeds, and non-supervisory employees. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Loop, support by Commissioner Gershenson. All right, I'll turn it back over to you, April.
Again, very much in alignment. They're just acknowledging some of the same things that were in the master agreement or anything that had to do with their normal course of business. And again, it's mostly, you saw most, and many of these, just acknowledging 410s, making sure that it's acknowledged in their 457 match and wellness match. So very similar.
Excellent. Commissioners, any further question on this item? Seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Next up, we'll move on to item number D, which is Human Resources Resolution implementing the Salary Administration Plan, 4th quarterly report for fiscal year 2022. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Gershenson. All right. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. In front of you is the Human Resources Department 4th quarterly report for fiscal year 22, which covers salary grade review studies that we've completed through the month of September. On this report, we've got creating 4 new classifications that impact 12 full-time positions. We're changing the salary grade of 1 full-time position, which impacts one full-time classification that impacts 2 positions. Changing the title of 1 classification with no change in salary grade or factors, which impacts 1 position. We are creating a new classification for a PT&E position. That the position already exists. We're just retitling it to something that fits the function of the position. And we are retitling and changing the salary grade of 3 classifications, which impacts a total of 19 positions. And if you have any questions on any of the studies, I'm willing to answer.
I do have a couple quick questions. What tool is utilized to determine the increase in salary grades?
So with the compensation and classification study, we adopted it's a database called Compensation Manager. And we take that when we're doing these studies and going through, and we have a document that I could share with you that shows each of the factors and all the different levels within those factors. And we make the determination on where the job duties and responsibilities fall on that. We put that number into this database, and it calculates the total points and the salary grade for us.
So I know we've talked a lot about the compensation study
Yeah.
over the course of the past couple of years, actually. I understand the overall compensation study. Where does the point factor method of evaluation come in at?
So part of the compensation study was bringing all of our salary ranges up to the local, the market. But we also implemented a completely new point factor evaluation plan. We've had one for 31 years, and it just hadn't grown with the change of technology and change in workflow. So we updated that to a whole new point factor plan that was more in keeping with modern workforce.
Because I appreciate that information, because the question I had, in fact, you answered it partially in regards to the point factor method of evaluation, from my understanding, was approved in 1985,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So when was the new point factor method of evaluation approved?
It would be December 7th of 2020 with the compensation study. It was all part of that resolution and package.
Okay, excellent, thank you. My next question is in regards to Schedule D. I know some follow-up questions were sent out in regards to some of the schedules.
Yes.
And one of the questions that I had, when you look at the Schedule D, the very first question inquiry I had was, if you scroll all the way over and you look at that percent change
Yes.
in the document, my question initially was, is the 5% that employees got as an increase in this year's budget, is that reflected on this Schedule D document? Because there's some discrepancies with, it's labeled, and I could be completely lost in what I'm saying, so bear with me here. So I see that it says the Salary Administration fourth quarterly report for fiscal year 2022. Yet in my inquiry, in regards to asking if the 5% was reflected, I received confirmation that yes, all salaries listed in Schedule D are the fiscal year 2023 salaries, including the 5%. And what's throwing me off is the document is labeled fiscal year 2022.
Yes, because these were, even though the studies were completed through the month of September, because of the effective date of when these changes will occur, which would occur now in fiscal year 23.
So can you break that down a little bit more for me? So if we take a look, when I read that first, let's just go off of the very first one of the Deputy District Court Administrator. I see that the percent change is 5%.
Yes.
So am I reading that as the 5% that's reflected in this document, that's the 5% that employees received over the budget increase
No.
of salaries?
No, it's a 5% within that change of salary grade. So in essence, they would have gotten, those employees would be getting 10%. The 5% of the general salary increase, and then this 5% with this change in salary grade.
Okay, so that is the clarifying information that I attempted to seek out, because then with that being said, if I look at, let's say, a position reclassification at 17%. So essentially, that's not just a 17% increase, but a 22% increase.
Correct, because they would have already gotten their 5% increase with the general salary increase effective on September 24th. So then now with this, they're getting a 17% increase because of that change in salary grade.
So what documents would reflect the actual percent change increase that encompasses the 5% and then the reclassification and increase in the salary grades? Because if I'm hearing you correctly, the Schedule D doesn't reflect the 5% that employees received due to the 5% increase with this year's budget.
The salaries that are listed where it says by week, those include that 5% general salary increase.
So if I'm hearing you though correctly, that last column where it says percent change.
Yes.
Am I to assume that I'm adding 5%, as you said, with that first one being 5, well, technically it's 10%. So is it fair to say that all of those numbers in the percent change column need to have 5% added to them?
Can I provide some clarification?
Yeah.
So this is the new range,
Mhm.
and then this is the level, right?
Yep.
So that is included then. So in this instance, it went 13%.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, so just, I think there's just, I mean, I get what you're trying to ask, I just want to clarify. So then really this is 13% above the 5%. This is the 5%, and it's 13% higher. You know what
Okay.
she's saying?
Okay,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, that is correct?
Yeah.
Okay, now you can explain it. Okay, I think we
Okay.
got it.
All right. So this first column where it says current, that column, that is including the 5%. So those are encompassing the general salary increase. And then when we get to the proposed biweekly, that's the change in salary grade.
So essentially, you could, if you wanted to, say that's an extra 5%, but it's based on that it already occurred. The employee pay increases happened during the pay period of November, or September 27th?
September 24th.
24th. So this is their new rate, and then when they did the new salary study, that's what happened.
So I'm not I
Okay, I get it.
apologize. I'm not following.
So I guess you could look at it, can I offer this? You could look at it two ways. If you be pre the salary increase in October 1st, you could add 5% to the line item on percent change. But the numbers you see on the biweekly include the 5% because of when this is coming to the board, because they don't get this increase until after this is approved, correct?
Why don't you talk about current and then proposed?
Right, but that's what I'm
Yes.
saying, is this is the current, the
When we
biweekly is the current of which includes the October 1st pay increase. These increases over on the side, that say percent change, is with the new rates.
So why wasn't there a percent change on the current? So on the left-hand side, the current classifications, why was a percent change column not added to the current?
Because that column already encompasses the 5% increase for the general salary increase.
So I'm hearing you say that it encompasses the 5%, but where I know I'm getting confused at is still, if you go all the way over to that right-hand side percent change, I hear you say that, well, yeah, there's 5% added to all of those numbers to reflect the additional 5% increase that employees received. So I look at this document, and I say, well, that's kind of misleading then, because it's not 5%, it's 10%. It's not 17%, it's 22%.
That's just because of the timing. If this was a quarter 1 or quarter 2 report, these biweeklies would have been the current rate. So it just so happens that this is coming right after, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But essentially, pre
If you didn't include October 1st, then you said yes, you could put in the 5% on that percent change. But these numbers on the biweekly include the newest rates. That helps.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Joliet?
I have a couple questions. I noticed that there are some changes to the employees in the Indigent Defense Office, am I correct?
Correct. One employee.
One employee, okay, because I know at our last board meeting, we just kind of approved that whole office.
They have one position that's general fund, and this is that one position.
So was this person already working for the indigent? Can't
Yes.
say that.
Indigent defense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just question probably for the public too, because we just approved that office. What were they doing for the Indigent Defense Office?
They've already been working on,
Oh, this is the executive, chief exec, or is this Pete Menace position or no?
this is actually the appointment specialist who is working on coordinating the court-appointed attorneys.
Okay, so, all right. I noticed also to fund these changes, it's coming from the general fund, the proprietary fund, and the special revenue fund.
Yes.
Can I ask why all three funds are being drawn on for this?
It depends on where the funding for the positions come from. For
Okay.
instance, any position within Parks and Recreation is proprietary funded.
Okay.
So that's where that funding gets pulled from
Okay.
for any increases in their department.
Okay.
The Friend of the Court is special revenue funded. It's kind of an odd kind of special fund.
Okay,
It's more of a reimbursement.
okay,
So that's where that's pulling from.
okay. Last question. What is is there a metric or formula used? I mean, I get that everybody has the right to ask for reclassification and that people probably are all deserving of it, but is there any formula that's used to assess the effects that these draws have on these funds, like percentage-wise? You give us numbers on what we're having to draw, but percentage-wise, like is there a formula that, can this be sustained?
I can get back to you on that. That would be more of a fiscal services
Okay,
question.
okay. So I thank you for the full explanation, but for that reason, I'm going to have to vote no just to better understand it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, just to kind of comment, follow-up question in regards to the, I know one of the questions that was asked to you, April, was the sustainability, the job description in regards to, oh gosh,
The sustainability specialist?
yes.
Yes.
My question with that is given that I had requested what it was the previous job description, and there was no previous job description, so my question is, given that there was no job description, how did it increase grades and salary? What factors, how did you utilize the factors of evaluating that position if there wasn't a job description for that position? So how did it get the increase?
This position itself was created with the fiscal year '23 budget, and in getting this position set up for the sustainability program, they used the project support specialist title which is typically used within information technology. And then we are gearing it to the sustainability. There's been no change in salary grade on this one.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm speaking on the right one, because I know the one that I would question. Would that step change be on Schedule D? Sorry.
It shouldn't be, because this one would have no cost.
Alrighty, well, thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
And Commissioner Nelson, can I offer one thing? I was whispering over here. I think there's some confusion on this Schedule D because actually this usually comes in September, just before the last meeting in October. So that's probably why there's that confusion on why it says fiscal year '22, and then these rates are fiscal year '23 because we're like a meeting behind. If that helps you at all, understand why there's that confusion on why are these new rates showing when you're showing a fiscal year '22 title. I don't know if that helps you, if I just confused you even more.
Sure, thank you. Commissioners, is there any further questions on item D? All right, see none. I still am a little confused and would like to gain some more clarification. I do plan on supporting it out of committee, but there are some questions that I still have, and I'm hopeful that between now and our board meeting, next Thursday, that we'll be able to have some further clarification. But I definitely just wanted to note that I do still have some questions I would like to gain some clarification on, but I most certainly don't want to jeopardize a potential standstill with this item. So with that being said, roll call, please.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Joliet,
No.
Lubes,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 3 yeas, 1 nay.
3 yeas, 1 nay. Motion carries. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Next up, we've got item E, resolution accepting Oakland County government from Public Act 152 of 2011 for calendar year 2023. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Lube, support by Commissioner Joliet. And again, welcome and welcome.
I'd like to introduce Stephanie Beverkey. She is our supervisor over benefits and wellness, and she's going to go over Public Act 152.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Public Act 152 is something that traditionally the county has always opted out of. This is a mandate that the state places on government entities that they have the option to opt out, so they cannot have a cap on the amount that is spent on medical expenses. So this memo today is requesting that the county recommendation is to opt out of PA 152, and there are some numbers within the memo as well I could expand on if you'd like me to.
Commissioners, questions, comments in regards to that? Commissioner Gershenson?
If you would.
Yes, so as you can see, in this memo, I'm looking at the third paragraph. At the bottom, it says that medical expenses are 19.8 times of an increase, not times, 19.8% higher than they were in previous years. A few explanations for this offset is, one, the state of Michigan typically increases about a 3.3% each year, and for this year they designated 1.3%, which is off trend. Second would be, due to the pandemic, we have deferred costs for medical, and we also have inflation. So we're thinking between those three factors, it's causing a very large offset than we've traditionally seen.
Does everybody know what the opt-out is? Do you-
Oh,
No.
for this resolution?
Yes.
That we're not gonna follow it. We don't have to.
Right, so
Correct.
what they meant in 2011,
Right.
when
I was gonna say, this
These are-
looks like we've done this for a while.
Yeah, so they made, when we were in the kind of financial crisis, they created this plan where you could unilaterally make all of your employees pay 20% of their healthcare premiums, or you could opt out. If you didn't opt out, you could actually just implement that within your organization.
So by opting out, we're not choosing to have employees pay 20% of their medical contributions, and we're not instituting the hard cap.
Commissioners, any further question, discussion? Seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we are on to item F, which is Board of Commissioners appointment to the Oakland Community Health Network. Commissioner Loops?
Are we taking a motion or this discussion?
That's where so it's gonna start off as informational, and then obviously depending on our discussion, it'll lead into whether or not we'll take a, motion. As we're all aware, the resignation of Dr. Taub leaves a vacancy for a partial term on the Oakland Community Health Network Board. This partial term expires on March 31st of 2024. Commissioner Loops?
I have spoken with a psychiatrist in Oakland County who's interested in the board. In the past, I've worked with a psychiatrist, and she is still actively involved in practice clinic and on different boards, and I would highly recommend her for the board.
Okay, and just as a reminder, so this body, we have some options, and I know that there was a document that was sent out in regards to, we could advertise to the public to submit applications to fill this vacant position. We could waive the submitting the applications and interview requirements. And we can also move forward with waiving both of those options and moving forward with making an appointment. So it sounds like Commissioner Lubes, you are bringing forward an individual that you would like to have fill this partial term. Committee members, questions, thoughts, comments in regards to Commissioner Lubes? Yes, Commissioner Gershenson.
Well, I'm very comfortable going with Commissioner Lube's recommendation, but I'd like to have the person come in at the next LAGO meeting, just to meet her.
Okay. So would you like to move forward today with making this recommendation of Commissioner's individual? Before that, after that, how would you, what are you insinuating?
What do you prefer, Penny?
It's up to you. I'm
Well, you know her.
happy with the doc.
Right, so then I'm okay going ahead, I'd still like to meet her.
Commissioner Joliet?
I assume you've already discussed with her the time commitment and all that other availability. Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So, I will also support Commissioner Lubes' recommendation. The one thing I want to pull back a little bit on is go back to process. Doesn't jeopardize or change any of the discussion that we're having, but what's gonna have to be needed is the individual that Commissioner Lubes has brought forward, we're gonna have to have her fill out the application.
Right.
So with that being said, do we pause on making the recommendation of the appointment or wait? Because I want to make sure we're following process. Pam, can you give us some additional insight clarification?
Well, that was I just had a question. Is it someone that's applied in the past or? No. Okay, so, because I mean, it's up to the committee, I guess.
So what if they apply and then we bring it forth at the board meeting?
I mean, yeah, she could apply she or he could apply at any time. So, I mean, it's up to the committee on how.
Well, and just in terms of following process, if you want the application first, then get the application and then bring it up at the board meeting.
Could we do a potential special LAGO meeting prior to the board meeting?
Well, remember, your recommendation is to the board actually appoints. So you could make a recommendation however you choose, and in the interim, we could get an application from the person, or, you know.
Is that still, we're still following process? That's,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think so.
okay. So commissioners, are we all understanding that clarification?
Mm-hmm.
So it appears, so today we can move over, so Commissioner Lubes is making a motion to recommend, is it Yolanda Giles, Dr. Yolanda Giles, to replace the vacant seat right now for the partial term on the OCHN board that expires on March 31st of 2024. Do we have a second?
Can I get the spelling of the name, please?
Yes. Yolanda, Y-O-L-A-N-D-A.
Okay,
Giles, G-I-L-E-S.
okay.
Thank you. So do we have a second? Support by Commissioner Gershenson. Is there any further discussion on this recommendation?
Can I just clarify the motion? So, she would be recommended as which category
General public.
for,
General public category
okay,
on the Oakland Community Health Network Board, and this partial term will expire on March 31st of 2024.
March 21st,
March 31st.
31st, 2024. Okay.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this recommendation? Seeing none, please prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Next up, we're moving on to our last item, item G, which is the appointment of the Oakland County Department of Health and Human Services Agency Board. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Luke, support by Commissioner Joliet. Again, commissioners, I want to pull up a part of one of the files attached to this item. It gives you the Michigan Department of Human Services Oakland, County Department of the Health and Human Services Board Agency. And as you can see, we've got, is it Grenade?
Dr. Dudley, yeah, Grenade Dudley.
Dr. Grenade Dudley, who has an appointment that has expired on October 31st of 2022. This individual is seeking reappointment to this board, and as just a reminder that members appointed, there are 2 members appointed by the Board of Commissioners, and this is one of 2 with this specific position expiring as of yesterday. So given that this individual has expressed interest in reapplying, it is up to the discretion of this committee to move forward with the reappointment, or as we discussed previously with the OCHN board, we have options as far as do we want to open up applicants and have them submit and do interviewing, or would this committee like to move forward with the reappointing of this individual? Commissioner Joliet.
Couple questions.
Sure.
So did the other person on here not respond? Are they not interested or they didn't respond?
So you're talking about the Sherry
Sherry,
Ross?
yeah.
Not up
Her
yet.
appointment expires October 31st of 2023.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
there's
she's still
only
on there.
one
Okay.
individuals who.
Gotcha. Should have my glasses on. Okay, I think I read this part right. So the current individual, he's from Southfield, but
She.
then, or she, I'm sorry. But on the application, or the resume, it says Detroit. One of them says Detroit. I don't know.
It's the school she
Application.
went to.
Oh, is that what it's, because it gives the name, address, Detroit. It's on the application.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay, see, my eyes still do work for something.
I was looking at the last sentence in the application, on the committee for the Parade Company Distinguished Clown Corps, and I want to know what that is.
Oh, I can tell you what that is, but
And my only,
Commissioner Lubes, you do like your clown costumes. Commissioner Gershenson.
so I know Dr. Dudley. She is amazing.
Okay.
But it's a similar situation. If you don't know her, maybe you'd like to meet her. The only question is that this has expired, so I don't know when their next meeting is, and this is critical work. This is critical funding that really we don't want to put a pause on.
I'm fine with reappointments. I guess is it any bearing if they lived in Detroit or Oakland County, Wayne County or Oakland County? Or is this just a misprint, or is it irrelevant? I don't know.
You know, it is important to some commissioners. I mean, it has come up before.
I'm just curious what is right, Detroit or Southfield?
Well, where do you see the Southfield?
The Southfield, go ahead.
The Southfield address that Commissioner Joliet is referencing is one of the files that was attached to this item.
Oh.
The
Resume,
So
yeah.
if you clicked on that second item of the OC DHS Agency Board,
Agency board?
it'll pull up the current appointments.
Okay, because that's a good question. I do believe she lives in Southfield, but you're absolutely right.
I'm just trying to pull up
Is that
the-
a new application, Pam?
Yes, they have to apply every year if they're interested.
Because I think it's the same street name, too.
Chatsford Circuit? Well, that's odd.
Yeah.
Maybe, let's see, is the zip code the same?
Because on her resume, it's Southfield.
Let's see if even the street even exists in Detroit, because it could just have been a
It is
misprint.
the same zip code.
It is.
Yeah, that would be really unusual. The Chatsford Circuit is in both places.
I think that might just be a misprint, because I just Googled it, and that address is not coming up in Detroit.
Okay.
Is it coming up in Southfield?
Yeah. Okay, just a point of clarification.
Yeah, no, that was a great question, and I'm glad it sounds like we did come to some consensus. So with that being said, Commissioner Gershenson, are you moving forward with making a motion?
Sure, I would. I'd also like to invite her to come in at
That would
the
be- yeah.
Sure.
next
I think that would
LAGO
be great,
meeting. Or
making sure with also Dr. Giles as well, I think would be great. So with that being said, Commissioner Gershenson has made a motion to reappoint Grenade Dudley to the Oakland County Department of Health and Human Service Agency Board. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Loops. Commissioners, any further discussion on the reappointment? Seeing none, please prompt the vote on the reappointment to the Oakland County Department of Health and Human Services Agency Board.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
4 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries. Next up, we have our final public comment of this morning. So at this time, I would like to open up public comment, and if there's anyone from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee, please make your way to the head of the table. Seeing that there is no one from the public, I will now close public comment. Commissioners, is there any further business to come before the committee today? Commissioner Gershenson.
well, I just would like to address the clown corps for the Thanksgiving
you.
parade. My aunts have always been in it, and it's just something that you apply to,
Oh, you
and
said
then
the
and you
Detroit
walk
Parade
in the
Company?
Detroit
Okay.
parade
Yeah.
with great costumes, and it's super fun if you're interested.
I know about the Thanksgiving parade clowns. People who volunteer actually pay.
That's right.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's right, because then that money goes into the parade.
Mhm.
But it's great if you're interested.
Well, Commissioner, you bring me to another interesting place in regards to, so the holiday extravaganza is a holiday Christmas parade that takes place in Pontiac. And I know every year they seek out individuals who would like to be a part of the parade. So Commissioner Lubes, if you are interested in putting together a clown squad for this parade, I would most certainly assist in putting that together. It is an amazing.
When is it?
When is it?
December 3rd. it's the first Saturday in December, and having been in it before,
Yeah.
elected officials do get their own little carriage if you don't want it, or you can dress up as a clown and ride in the carriage.
Rode on Santa's sleigh before.
Oh, see, I've always had to ride in the back, yeah.
So,
And
but
is it for
definitely an amazing
Pontiac?
event.
It's actually 4 communities. It takes place in Pontiac, but it's Pontiac, White Lake, Waterford, and
Okay.
Auburn Hills.
Oh, wow.
Genesis Credit Union is the big
Okay.
sponsor of it. And there's a big scholar, or not big, but the Fran, what's her last name?
Amos?
No,
Oh, Anderson?
Anderson Scholarship Award that's presented beforehand at a breakfast. It was at the Presbyterian Church last year. It's been at the Pontiac Courthouse before. It's a
Their
nice.
parade, 9 a.m.?
It is,
I just got an did you get the email for it?
I did, I think the parade is at 11 a.m. And many of us may remember Linda Zabik, Linda Zabik,
She's
who
still-
was an amazing, I believe she has retired
Yep.
as of last year, but she has been an amazing point person organizer.
She still
and
is
it
doing
still
great.
looks like
Yeah.
she still is. So it is definitely an amazing event for families as well. But again, Commissioner Lubes, if you're looking to participate as a clown, I will most certainly be following up with you after. Commissioners, any other business to discuss? Seeing none, let's adjourn at 10:31.
Right.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Yep.